Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. To kick this sucker off, the long-anticipated Data Vault webinar. So this is Josh Philo, run VP of Business Development for TESCHGlobal, and just going to kick things off here a little bit and kind of introduce, why we are all here. So we have decided to launch what we call our TESCHGlobal data management movement, where we're going to be introducing data management concepts and methodologies and approaches that we are implementing for our customers. This has kind of been by demand, right? So as some of you have known, we've released some thought leadership pieces and related to some technical skills around, deploying continuous integration, DevOps, what is a reference architecture for modern data management. And so we've gotten great feedback from just the community and the ecosystem out there, sharing similar stories from our partners and then also from our customers who have been, kind of thirsty for the new technologies out there. We see it time over and time again where our customers are definitely bogged down in their day-to-day operations of IT, where they have to, just kind of fight fires every day and get the business what they need. And so it's tough for them to be able to dive into these new technologies and new methodologies and approaches of today. And that's really what we want to do is we're thinking and strategizing on how we can kind of get content out there for our customers and our ecosystem. And really, this is where we've led to. So this is kind of the official launch and kickstart to our data management movement. And basically, let me just scroll back here. What we're doing is we're having a webinar to kick off the topics, and then we're going to be launching YouTube videos on our website where we're actually showing and demonstrating with the technical skill sets of what we're talking about. And so we really want to be, seen as a strategist and as software engineers that we just love technology and love diving into it, and we want to help take our customers to the next level. So with that, when we say the data management movement, basically we mean our executive strategist is Robert Griswold, who is the VP of Professional Services for TESCHGlobal. He heads up our practice in the modern data management side of our house, where he is implementing new solutions and technologies for our customers. And he's going to be having a subject matter expert from his team on every new series, where we'll have them talking about the specific topic. So today we have the Data Vault topic, and that's the Data Vault series that we're kicking off with this webinar. So Robert Griswold is our executive strategist who's going to kick things off here, talking about some of the challenges that customers and people are facing today and why you would want to implement a Data Vault strategy. And then we have our subject matter expert, Justin Small, who's a Data Vault certified practitioner from our team. And then, of course, I'm just playing the host of today. So my role is pretty easy. So we're just going to start, and I'll give a 10-second spiel on TESCHGlobal for those of you that don't know who we are. And then I'll hand it over to Robert to talk about the data management challenges. And then Justin's going to take it from there and explain to you all what a Data Vault is, what are the benefits of a Data Vault, and what is the system of a Data Vault in a nutshell. And then from there, we'll kind of talk about where you can start in implementing a Data Vault. And like I said, this is the first step into our series, and Justin will be featured in YouTube videos showing you technical capabilities using products like Talend and Snowflake on building a Data Vault. So just spend a couple seconds here talking about TESCHGlobal. We've been around since 2005. We are headquarters in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area with a crazy team of software engineers and strategists spread throughout the country. We also have an office in Mexico City supporting a Latin American initiative and strategy we have there, and also in the Netherlands for another global project. So hence the name Global after the name Tesch. So with that, we have a modern data management practice, which is what we're talking about and highlighting today. And that's the team that Robert Griswold heads up for us. We're deploying solutions and partners to Talend and open source tools, and really enabling our customers and their customers to use tools like that to be able to save on costs, get more efficient, and get data to the business faster, right? And that's what we'll be talking about today. We also have another arm of our practice, and that's a nimble software development arm where we're helping build something from nothing, or helping fix some broken solutions for startups and for big companies who just need, we use JavaScript, Java Enterprise, open source tools to do that. And so we're using, again, same concept. We're using the newer tools to deploy cheaper solutions quicker and faster for our customers. And so really, again, we're software engineers. We are geeks, love technology, and that's why we're doing this, so that we can help guide you on your future initiatives and strategies. And really our mission is to demonstrate to businesses their potential by leveraging modern technology, tools, and methodologies. And so, that's kind of a powerful statement, is we want to, whether it's a Fortune X company or a startup, we want to give you your potential, whether it's your data potential, being able to do things and automate them and be more efficient, get access to data, or whether it's, having a better user experience for your customers. So that's what we're here. That's why we're here. That's what we're all about. And with that, I'd love to turn this on over to Robert Griswold.
Hello, everybody. I developed this slide to be responsive to the customers that we talk to. And over the years, I spent 4 years at Talon. I've heard a lot of stories about why data management is important. And I'm going to kind of start from the right and work to the left. So one of the things we hear almost across the board is access to all of the data, a 360-degree view of the data. So, you hear things like data lake. And what is a data lake? It's just all the streams of data, creates the data flowing into one place. So you have one source of data. And the first time I heard about Data Vault was about 5 years ago. And to me, I always thought that data lake and Data Vault were kind of synonymous. The big difference, a few big differences. One is it has a very prescriptive model that's extensible. And, you have a consistent way to organize your data. So everybody, as long as you govern that, you have a pretty rigorous way to store all sources and define them as well. So I'll talk a little bit more about that and how they're all tied together. Another thing we hear is application modernization. There's two ends of the spectrum. There's really old legacy systems that don't have push notifications on changes. They're not service enabled. You have to go right after the table. And the tables to get the data. On the other end of the spectrum, you have all of this IoT and unstructured data coming from social media, from appliances or equipment in the field. So that those are all sources, and the data vault plays into that. So and the two most important things I think that the data vault solves are agility and accessibility. So if you start, and really the main crux you need to understand at this point is a data vault, again, lands all of the source data into one place. So if you have this one place to go for source data and you iteratively and organically keep adding sources, your means of getting the raw data, the raw materials you need to make decisions is more consistent and more available. Traditionally, enterprise data warehouses were meant to be sources of data, but they were very, costly and time intensive to extend. So a data vault does help that. And accessibility, that's really in terms of the design. If you have this consistent and rigorous design, it's accessible. And you saw the guitar in the picture. We turn the guitar amp past 10 to 11 when we add, master data management to a data vault, and that's taking all of the data from the data vault, mastering it, cleansing it, doing fuzzy matching, grouping the data, and then feeding that back into the, more of a business type vault. And to take that amplifier from 10 to 11 to 12, you add governance on top of that, and that's really where the data is accessible in the vault. You have data dictionaries that are at the source and technology level. You have glossaries at the business level. And then you have data lineage where where that data flowed from the source to the raw vault to a place where you're applying business rules, where it's usable information and reports and visualizations and ODSs. So, that's where the data quality comes in, the master data management. So I'm going to turn this over to Justin, but it's just, this is the story we've heard, and we are just moving really strongly into Data Vault and, master data management to support that, because that's what the customers want. So the results of that, we have a lot of people who hear this as customers, or people looking to help us in terms of coming to work for us. Everybody's really excited about getting started. So I'll let Justin kind of give this a little bit more light about what a Data Vault truly is. Thank you.
Great. So, hey everyone, my name is Justin Small, and I am a TESCHGlobal's certified Data Vault 2.0 practitioner and also software engineer here. So really, what we're here to talk about today is just kind of the challenges that Data Vault is meant to address, and really what is the value proposition of a Data Vault. I want to keep it high level at this point. And as we've mentioned, there will be further videos that will dive into kind of how you implement all this. Well, let's start out with taking a look at a lot of the data management challenges that we've kind of been hearing from customers and we see people facing today. So a lot of these challenges are around a lot of the new things that are kind of making their way into the enterprise. So big data, which we define as data volume and velocity, is starting to get to the point where it's very, very difficult to manage quantities of data in the way that we used to. Unstructured, multi-structured data, which is kind of another sort of tied into big data, and we talked about coming off of those IoT sensors or even web logs, and we kind of talked about that as variety over there. And then also just making all of this data available to the analysts. So how is it that they're able to, what format do they need that data in to be able to analyze it? And then issues around ownership and governance, security and privacy, auditability, accountability. And really, things have become so difficult to do with the old tools and with the old methodologies, just because primarily the scale has blown up so much. And for a lot of enterprises, we hear that they've had this data kind of in-house for a while, but just haven't had any way to take a look at it. And it almost seems like it's this untapped resource that they haven't been able to access, either because it's tied down in a legacy system or it's in such a messy format that it's almost impossible to generate the number of rules that you would need to generate in order to analyze it. So all that's to say, this is kind of something that won't fly in today's world, where really what the user wants is to have all the information available at their fingertips instantaneously. And along with that, that's a very outstanding value proposition for the enterprise, because many just data-driven decisions can both earn and save multitudes of money. And the kind of why behind a little bit of this is, depending on how your data warehouse is modeled, whether it's third normal form or a dimensional warehouse, the cost of maintaining that just continues to rise as the amount of data and the amount of subject areas kind of increase. So, the initial build out for a dimensional warehouse or a third normal form warehouse, isn't too much, but as continued business requirements are added, it gets so much more costly to maintain. And, the build out cost is low, but the maintenance cost is high. What we're trying to do here with the Data Vault is to think a little bit more forward in terms of, how we account for the cost of the build out for kind of the value proposition of being able to maintain that over the long run much more cheaply and scalably. So, in that case, you're not working with a data warehouse in a dimensional model where you continue having to conform your dimensions as you change them. And especially on the level of dimensions, a lot of enterprises have found that it's more expensive to actually continue conforming existing dimensions. So they just spin out another dimension. So really all of that kind of results in this mess, and the reasons for that are because as the velocity of the data you're processing and the volume of the data you're processing increase, the number of ways you can accomplish your data integration task, vastly decrease. And on the way up, on the way up with velocity and volume, as those increase, you're going to have to re-engineer your existing system a number of times. So the data vault is really about cutting out that re-engineering process. So we'll kind of dive into what that is a little bit more in depth and why organizations really should turn to the data vault system to address their data challenges. So we've talked a little bit about the agility and the accessibility to your data all in one place. And that's kind of something everyone wants now. For various reasons, whether it's because re-engineering just is too slow for the business to maintain, or because, a business acquires many other companies, we have a lot of data silos that have been built up. So, if the company can't afford to really construct that central store of data, sales or finance or marketing is going to figure out, what it takes to build their own so that they can move on with their immediate needs. Or also if you're a business that acquires many other businesses, you end up having source systems from each of those businesses kind of off in their own silo, not integrated with the rest of your business, and that really kind of results in a fragmented picture of your business when you want to analyze it on a high level. The data vault really is meant on getting data, from any source at all quickly and making it accessible to the end user as much as possible. So data vault really focuses in the implementation of it on those first two icons that you see there over to the left. And then the four icons after that kind of follow from it. So once you have that data moving smoothly and accessible, you can implement MDM to make sure that it's accurate, and you can then activate it once it's accurate to make business decisions off of it. And all that's kind of enabled by modern applications, and hopefully that results in a 360 view of whatever subject you want. So, while Data Vault is technology agnostic, you're able to do it really with whatever ETL tool you want and with whatever database you want. The implementation part of it and choosing the right tools is really important. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's first talk about kind of what is Data Vault. So Data Vault we define as a system of business intelligence. So it's a modeling technique, it's a methodology, and it's an architecture. And I think that's really important to understand because, I've heard a lot of people not have a great idea of what it is or kind of misinterpret it as only a modeling technique. And while Data Vault 1.0 certainly was just a modeling technique, Data Vault 2.0 is really an entire system of business intelligence. It's not just one piece of your architecture for your data integration architecture. It's not just a modeling technique, and it's not just a methodology. It's kind of all three at once. So, and then the fourth thing is how you implement that. You want to implement it in a way that makes sense for you. So, it has everything you need to accomplish your enterprise vision in data warehousing and information delivery, and that's what we believe here at TESCHGlobal. So, really, what we're kind of going for when we implement these things is simple, easy, repeatable, flexible structures, things you don't have to re-engineer once you've built them out. And the model there is based off the hub and spoke design, which kind of enables that. And then the methodology really surrounds, the standards, procedures, and rules that make it, in the end, completely automatable. You can't automate a process without having it be standardized and having a robust set of rules that surround it. So let's dig into kind of what those three things mean, and I kind of touched on them, but just like every stool needs at least 3 legs, apparently every funnel needs at least 3 balls in it too, maybe a 4th one for implementation. But our three balls in this funnel that will spit out into a data vault are the architecture, the methodology, and the model. So that's it in a nutshell. The methodology is how are you building how are you building out your data vault? The architecture is what is each piece of your data vault? How are those linked together? And then the model is just the data design of your data vault. So with that, let's kind of look at some of the benefits that the data vault offers. So really, we've kind of touched on this, and it's really reiterating, but essentially what you want to do is have a standardized and repeatable process for every portion of the data vault so that you can automate those. And obviously the model is set out in a way that allows you to scale it without having to re-engineer things. And if there's any sort of, I guess, the 2 kind of unwritten rules of the data vault, which I'm sure you've probably heard before, is all the data all the time. There's no such thing as bad data. So really, you want to have all your data in one place and have it in a format where there is fault tolerance, so you can do root cause analysis if there's ever an error, and you can integrate around what oftentimes are business problems regarding bad data instead of making those into technical problems. So let's kind of break down each piece of the data vault system, starting with the methodology. Back one slide, sweet. So this is the methodology, and to kind of break it down, Data Vault follows an agile methodology, and it's built off of that, but it's trying to be the best of the breed between a lot of different project methodologies, which you've probably heard of, such as CMMI, Six Sigma, TQM, and the agile stuff. So really, you're kind of trying to put all those things together, and what it hopefully enables is agile deliveries, kind of on the order of 2 to 3 weeks, and the definition of that delivery being a minimal viable product. So you have something in the user's hands that you can get feedback on in 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully you're implementing the best practices from CMM, Six Sigma, and TQM along with that, working, to manage risk and automate the process. And if you're familiar with CMMI, you don't jump to the highest maturity level automatically. So really, kind of this is the end game of it. But this is what the data vault is meant to really enable. So what's the process? We always start, and we'll start there with that dark green bubble on the left-hand side. We're kind of always wanting to start with business understanding. So, what are the business's priorities? What is the key deliverable or the value proposition that the business needs? And, it just doesn't make sense to start building something out without a clear idea of what it's going to end up as. So, getting a clear picture from the business as to what product they need from this business intelligence system is crucial. It also helps you manage scope as you build out the data vault, and because the data vault is scalable, you can do it in an agile fashion. You don't have to do the big bang approach where you account for your entire enterprise at once and then try to build that all out at once. You're able to build products on a vertical basis initially, and then expand that into different areas of your business. So once you have those business priorities sorted out, you'll kind of move into the next phase, which is this interplay between data understanding and modeling. We know we need this data for this report at the end. Where does that data lie? What's the source for it? What environment is it in? And what kind of validation and cleaning does it need? And then along with understanding that data, you can begin modeling it, engineering your data vault model, starting to look at ways that the data will consistently need to be transformed in order to be stored in the data vault model, kind of evaluating how well those things work. At that point, you're able to deploy it, and you can score the performance of it. You can monitor it, and the customer can accept that. And then at the end of this process, going from that red star over to the green star, the kind of agile thing is this whole thing starts over again. So what you're trying to enable there is a repeatable, a consistent, a standardized process that can enable automation. So that's really core behind the methodology. Now we'll focus a little bit more on the architecture. So the data vault architecture is kind of each piece of the data vault. So like we said, the methodology is how you build it out. The architecture is each piece of it. So kind of what's in the architecture, we'll kind of walk through each thing there, each functional component there, so that we can address all those. But we basically have four basic areas there. We have a source area, a stage area, your data vault area, which is your enterprise data warehouse, and then information marks where the data is accessed. So those are kind of the four main ones that you want to worry about initially. And then from there are additional ones that you can build out that will help you with things like metrics and error handling, and eventually MDM and operationalizing your vault. But we'll start kind of with just the sources. So your sources should be fairly clear. That's just your source system, So anything that you're trying to integrate in the data vault goes there. And the staging area is, a bunch of disconnected tables without referential integrity. And the only real purpose of the staging area is to reduce the load on the source systems so that you aren't having to load down the source systems with all of the processing that's required to model the data in the raw vault, but you're able to just quickly extract them. Obviously, a key kind of thing to keep in mind with the data vault is that it does have a strategy for integrating big data and NoSQL. So, that's not left out here. This is not limited to just relational data stores, but you're able to integrate those too. So then kind of from the staging area, we put it in what's called the raw vault inside of, really what's the data warehouse area. So that data is still kind of the same data. It's still raw in the same way it was in the source system and at the same grain of the source system, but it's just modeled in the data vault modeling technique, which we'll get into in a second. Then typically what we would want to do in order to gather requirements is create a raw report off of the data vault model, which is made by kind of what you can do is virtualize a raw mart and then a raw report from that mart. And that's really, a lot of times in agile requirements meetings, people don't know what data, analysts, they don't know what kind of data is available in the data warehouse, and the data warehouse doesn't really know what kind of data they want to see. So this is really meant to ameliorate that problem, where, the analyst is then immediately able to see the type of data that's available there and use that for requirements that will ultimately be for their end game of creating, a report or a visualization. Once those requirements are kind of gathered, we have what's called the business vault, and those have business rules applied, and it's kind of a query assistant area that's just basically made to make the queries coming from the information marks run faster and not be so tied down to the structure of the raw vault. So things are pre-aggregated in that place in the business vault. You have business rules applied. Maybe sometimes the source data doesn't match the grain or match the grain of the data in the business vault, but that's okay at that point. So really the point of keeping everything at the same grain in the raw vault is for auditability. You're able to really rebuild all of your source systems at a point in time from the raw vault because you've kept the data raw. So you're not losing kind of the data lineage that's so necessary that goes from your source systems to your raw vault. Then after your business vault, and on, you really have lost that auditability. But the point at that level is to create reports and visualization without losing the opportunity to rebuild your source systems or rebuild a picture of your source systems from the raw vault. So really what this kind of implies, but I haven't explicitly stated, is a separation of hard rules and soft rules, which you can kind of see up there with the arrows that are pointing downward. And I haven't defined those, but I'll try to give a quick sort of working definition of those. So your hard rules, really those are anything that does not change the grain of the source data or transform it in some way so that it can't be put back in your source format. So, what does that look like? That looks like data type alignment. You can check for data types there. You can normalize and denormalize your data. You're able to maybe tag the data with system fields, which we do in the data vault. So we definitely will be doing that. You can deduplicate data with a hard rule, or you can maybe split it by record structure. But what you're not doing is doing any kind of, implementing any kind of rule that changes or interprets the data. So you're not going to change the grain of the data or really turn the data into information. And, examples of soft rules which do turn data into information is, concatenating name fields. If you're going to standardize an address or compute something, get an average over something or a sum of something, that would be a soft rule. And the whole goal of this architecture is to push the soft rules as far downstream as possible so that if a business requirement changes and the analyst needs to see something else, you don't have to re-engineer anything upstream of that. You don't have to re-engineer your processes that go from source to the raw vault if the data already exists in the raw vault and the analyst just needs to see it in a different way. All you need to do is change whatever rules are applied to the data as it moves into the information mart. So, and then another thing I've been implicitly kind of talking about but not explicitly stating is the distinction between data and information. So really as data flows through this, hopefully by the time it moves from the source systems into the information mart, it's become information. And I think I'll try to quickly define kind of like data versus information. So really data is kind of your discrete elements and your facts, whereas I think of information as processed data, or kind of the perception of those facts. And then hopefully from information, analysts can gain knowledge, and then the business can gain wisdom. So with all those terms kind of thrown out there, I'll try to put them into a sort of an example. So, for example, I'm really into motorsports, and not that into NASCAR, but, Dale Earnhardt Sr. has had an amazing track presence. So, for me, if I'm studying him, or if I want to put it in terms of Dale Earnhardt Sr., the data about Dale Earnhardt Sr., would be things like his height, his average lap time, how many race victories he had, and so on. The information about him might be something like a book or a report on his racing career, or his historical background. Then once you go into knowledge, that's kind of the mental application. So, maybe at that point I've memorized a report on those 10 greatest race victories from Dale Earnhardt Sr., or I know something, now that in my head, about him that I don't have to reference. And then from wisdom, that's kind of the internalization of it. So at that point, I make a personal choice, to take up a NASCAR career because I've been so inspired by Dale Earnhardt Sr. So that, or maybe I choose not to, and that's really wisdom. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do with this, and kind of transform data from data into information by the time it gets into the information for the benefit of the analyst. All right, so we spent quite a bit of time on the architecture. Let's go ahead and talk about the model a little bit, and then, we can talk about how we'll build all this. So as you can see, the model is, for the raw vault, is kind of composed of three basic entities or components. So we have hubs, links, and satellites, and it's all laid out in a hub and spoke architecture. So, the hub has the satellites as the spokes, and then hubs are linked together by links. So, how does this work in order to manage your data? Well, hubs integrate all of the data in your raw vault based off of business key. So what's a business key? A business key is just a unique identifier for a business object. So what's a business object? Maybe a customer, and then maybe another business object is like a marketing campaign. So your hub would contain whatever unique identifier identifies a customer, and then whatever unique identifier identifies a marketing campaign. A link between those two would be able to describe the relationship between those two. For instance, maybe a customer subscribed to a marketing campaign, and a link can show that relationship. And then satellites, which hang off of the hubs, contain all the descriptive information. So a satellite hanging off a hub may have the customer's address, maybe any sort of billing statements that are associated with that customer, any money they owe, and kind of so on and so forth. So really, and all of the business keys are actually hashed into what ultimately becomes a common key. And an alternative way of doing this is using sequences, but the Data Vault 2 standard uses hash keys. And kind of why do we do that? Well, really, as we talked before about trying to integrate NoSQL with RDBMS data, if you don't have a common key that you can draw between the NoSQL data and the RDBMS data, then it just makes communicating, much more difficult. So the hash key is really meant to kind of get that common key going so that those can talk to each other. And really, all of this kind of, it's a best of breed kind of approach between star schema and third normal form, but really what you're trying to do is represent the business better by the way that your data your data warehouse is structured. So really kind of another saying that's kind of circulated around the Data Vault scene has been, if you understand your Data Vault, you understand your business. So really, this is meant to reflect as accurately as possible the structure of the business process in a way that, allows the data to be extracted from that in a really repeatable and logical manner. And as you can see, this is pretty simple. So it's really amazing that it can do all those things at once. But one other thing I would kind of draw attention to here is, if you want to add another entire source system with a different business, domain into this architecture, what you can do is just add another hub for that business object that you're integrating in, and then add all of the satellites around that hub that contain the descriptive information for that hub, and then just link it to whatever hubs it relates to in whatever way it relates to them. And at that point, what's happened is you've been able to integrate another entire subject area into your existing data warehouse without having to re-engineer anything that you've previously built. And so those processes can kind of remain going unchanged while you can build new processes for your new business unit. Okay, so all that said, we'll kind of talk about where to start with this. We're going to have more information in the videos that come out, but kind of a way to think of this whole process that ultimately leads to that, that data to knowledge, the data to information, to knowledge, to wisdom, is really kind of, starting from the basics. So our example here is kind of building a cabinet. And, where do you start if you want to build a cabinet? You start in the forest. You need to get a tree cut down in order to get the raw material for that cabinet. And really the way the business should be doing this is, prioritizing organically what it is that they need to integrate first, and then finding the source system and the application where that data lies. All right, so the second step after we've taken it out of the forest is to stick it in a lumber yard, and this kind of represents our staging area. And like I said before, the staging area, the only real purpose of it is to reduce the load on the source system. So, a forest would get super, super messy and hard to walk around in if all the cut down logs stayed there, or if all of them were just shipped right to Home Depot. So you don't have a bunch of logs laying around in Home Depot. Neither do you have a bunch of raw materials hanging around in your business vault. So you have a staging area, and there are ETL and ELT routines that kind of help get the data there. And then you're also able to integrate, real-time and big data routines in with this too. So once you have all of your lumber in a lumber yard, it gets sent to a wood shop. And this is kind of meant to express data discovery. This is the process that comes as you're sort of modeling your data vault and your business vault. Is, some trained master, craftsman needs to be able to work with that raw material and experiment around with designs and try out new things, to build a cabinet that eventually could become a bestseller and make money for the company. So, some of the data goes to the wood shop where it can be experimented with. And then for existing designs that are already there, that data will go to what's on our next slide, which is the assembly line. So we have a whole bunch of cabinets being made, and this is just, your standardized processes for delivering a product, to your end user, which in this case is the business analyst. So obviously ETL and ELT routines are involved in that, and the raw data kind of goes in and comes out not raw data anymore. It comes out in a way that's actually consumable. And then at the end, we have what is our showroom. So this is hopefully the managed self-service BI kind of endpoint, where you have information marts with prepared data that can be presented and managed by the end user without having to have the technical involvement that it previously would have had. And there are extraction routines and business logic around this. So that's kind of the whole process that we go through in order to implement this. And, obviously, I think we'll talk about tools next. The implementation of this is really important. And, while Data Vault is agnostic of the tool you use, we at TESCH have found Talon and Snowflake and a couple of our other partners just to be in the best of the breed for being able to build these out. So, Talons you can kind of think of as the links between those components of your architecture. And then Snowflake is a cloud data warehouse that you can use for staging and the raw vault. But really, you don't have to do this in the cloud either. You can do this really with an on-premise data storage just as easily. And, that's not a problem at all. And really, kind of, we've had a lot of success with building these out with Talon. We have a number of customers right now who have chosen Talon kind of as their tool of choice to build these things out. And a lot of that comes through the ability Talon has to generate schema that can keep your whole data vault in sync and then generate job templates as well that you can use to automate your processes. So I just wanted to mention those things. We at TESCHGlobal want to be able to help you in whatever capacity we can in managing your data and being able to make it a valuable asset for your business. And we're just very thankful to have such great partners with us who are on board with that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up now and just kind of recap what we talked about. So, what can you learn from this? Really, we want you to be able to think differently. The Data Vault is a viable solution for you kind of no matter what scale you are. If you want to be able to generate a data warehouse in an agile fashion that will scale and be able to meet your business needs in a nimble fashion, that's what the Data Vault is there to address, and that's why we're excited about it. You don't need a bunch of advanced design capabilities. As you saw, the concepts of it are fairly simple. You can, integrate both big data and structured and unstructured data in it, and it really gives kind of the data lake you know, a structure and a format that allows you to make it something that does provide agility and accessibility rather than the swamp where you're lost and unable to figure out, you know, where the data you need is. So stay tuned for video snippets. We're going to be doing some deep dives on each of those three components I mentioned, the methodology, architecture, and the model. And we'll also have some blog posts out talking just about some of our experiences with this and our thoughts surrounding it. So with that, I think I'll wrap up. I'm going to open it up for a Q&A for about 10 minutes. And if you can, I think it's available.
Yeah.
So if,
I'll go for it. Okay, so what I was going to say was, if we can use
the chat feature here for the Q&A, that way, you know, we don't have to deal with any audio issues, and I can just see your questions written out there. So I think the chat feature is open to anyone who's attending. If that's not the case, you know, someone can inform me, and we can do it in a different format. Okay, cool. So I don't really see anything coming in through the chat. I'll just go ahead and turn it back over to Josh in case any of those. Oh, okay. Right. So Dale Anderson, who's another real thought leader around Data Vault and Talend, which I'm, okay, so he's saying another use for the PSA is archival of source data. So just to explain that really quick, the PSA stands for the persistent staging area, and really that's something that goes along with your staging area that's meant to maintain kind of a limited history of your data, so that in case you need to archive a certain amount of it, just in case something happens with your data vault, or something happens with your source systems, you have an archive of that data there in order to rebuild either one of those. So really that kind of falls into the category of fault tolerance, and we have a number of clients who are interested in implementing that in order to kind of build in one more layer of reliability into their data vault. So I just thought I'd touch on that really quick. Go ahead and shoot any other questions through, and otherwise I'll hand it over to Josh.
Yeah, so it looks like, you know, there's no other questions right now, but again, this was the introduction for us, for you all on what Data Vault is in our opinion. And, you know, if you come up to our headquarters, you'll understand why we had a cabinet as our analogy, because on the first floor of our building is a cabinetry maker. And so it kind of was a no-brainer when we were coming up with the analogy. Justin was staring out the window, seeing in the woods, and went downstairs and saw the cabinet maker. So it kind of worked out well there. So whenever ever by, you'll see that, and it'll probably give you a little chuckle. But yeah, we're excited about Data Vault. We're excited about implementing it on various use cases for our customers. And so stay tuned for the tactical videos we'll be releasing, showing some real life use cases and how to implement and produce our reports from a Data Vault methodology. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, Justin, for your time. And we'll all stay in touch and talk soon.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks a lot.